You were also the first and only Asian American to be appointed as director in the New York State Small Business Development Center. What was the mission of the organization? And tell us a little bit about your role.
Okay, well, the mission of the organization is to provide resources for small businesses. And primarily what we did was one-on-one counseling with the businesses to help them get established and hopefully to maintain themselves and then ultimately to grow. And that meant connecting them to resources such as business finance, loans, helping them get grants where they were available, and there were very few grants available. But also making sure that they're aware of all the kinds of issues that a business owner needs to know about. Now, you can't know everything, but you should be positioned to ask the right questions or to know that there's something you ought to check, right? So that was primarily the mission, and I think we were fairly successful at working with the businesses that came to our office. And of course, that program continues today under different leadership. In terms of my role, because I was able to start that particular center, which was located at LaGuardia Community College, which is in Northwest Queens, I looked around at the landscape and I realized that small businesses did have some resources, but the immigrant businesses in particular did not. So, for example, there was an office opened up by the U.S. Small Business Administration in Chinatown to help people fill out applications, but they were wholly unprepared. So there were issues when people were asked to bring certain documents in. The people who translated didn't understand the business significance of that form or the question that was being asked. So consequently, that information wasn't conveyed to the business owner, and the business owner came back over and over and over again. So my role was to try to make sure that they understood what it was the small business owners didn't understand. And I can give you a fairly simple example. I read in the newspaper about a restaurant owner, and he had just come back for the 5th time from the SBA office, and he was given a summons for litter that was in front of his store. And a reporter happened to be standing there, and the business owner said that he had cried so hard he had nothing but dry tears to cry. When I read the story, I said, so what happened with him? We were able to contact him through the reporter, and we found out that he had gone back time and time again, bringing every document that was requested, but then he was turned away because he was told that the majority shareholder had to sign the documents. There were 7 shareholders. Nobody had the majority. And the translator did not understand that what they needed was a majority of the shareholders to sign, meaning that if we got 4 of the owners to sign, the job was done. And it was that simple mistake, not understanding that it was to hold accountable the majority of the owners versus a owner, a single majority owner. This man had gone back and forth so many times. So there were a lot of little things like that that made it even more difficult for these businesses to get the help they needed.
So you were able to implement programs to help them through things like this.
That's right, to make the other technical assistance providers aware of what was happening, to act as an intermediary, to make sure that they would refer people to us if they thought the message wasn't getting through. I created a team that spoke English, Spanish, Korean, and 3 dialects of Chinese to serve as many communities as we could. And again, we tried to work as a bridge to make sure people got the resources.
Are people aware that these services actually exist?
I think that there is an awareness. The way that the immigrant communities get their information is a little different than the so-called mainstream. For example, we would make sure that we were featured in some form or another in the various language newspapers, for example, the Spanish language newspapers, because we would ultimately find people would walk around with an article that they clipped 2 years ago, and they would come up to our office and ask us if this particular lady was still there because she was interviewed as the Spanish-speaking counselor. And so I think that the message is there, but it's one of the best kept secrets in New York City, unfortunately.